Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about my favorite brushes. Now most of these are drugstore because I'm really cheap, but I do have some high-end ones in here, and these are basically the ones that like I cannot live without. I take with me everywhere I go. They're like essential in my daily makeup routine. So if you want to see my favorite brushes, then just keep watching. Okay, so we'll start with eye brushes. Overall, my favorite brand of brushes is E.l.f. They make the softest, most amazing brushes for the best price I've ever, hands down, found. So you will see a trend that most of these brushes are E.l.f., but that's just because they make amazing brushes. Okay, so the first three brushes that I cannot live without, that I use on a very regular basis, it's going to be these three brushes right here. These are all from E.l.f. We have the contour brush, the eye crease brush, and the blending eye brush. So these two brushes, the contour brush and the blending eye brush, are my two favorite brushes for packing things in the outer corner and blending that out. They are fantastic for that. This one I also love for doing a really blown out lower lash line if I'm not trying to be precise and I just want to go in for something quick. And this one is fantastic for that. It just, like, the shape of it makes it really easy to get on that bottom lash line and not poke myself in the eye because it's not super spread out. It's fairly precise in its dome shape, so I really love this one for lower lash line as well. But this one for the outer corner is just perfect because it just packs it perfectly right in there, and then you can just kind of wiggle it around and smudge it. It's fantastic. And then this one, the eye crease brush. I do use this for the crease sometimes if I want like a really precise like line that I'll go back in and blend out. But for the most part, I use this one strictly for the lower lash line because it's perfect for getting really precisely under there and making sure the color is laid down where I want it to be. So after E.l.f., my favorite brush brand is Wet n Wild. I have two of their crease brush just because I love it that much. I use both of these every single time I do my makeup. I use one for like the all over transition shade, and this one for more like outer corner or darker crease shades, just like depending on what I'm going to do with them. But both of them, every single time I do my makeup, have to have them. These are the softest, most just easy to use brushes, and they're like 99 cents. Like, you can't beat that price. So after those, my favorite brushes are actually ones that come in palettes. And it's funny because I feel like most people don't like palette brushes and usually end up either throwing them away or just leaving them in a palette, but I actually like them. So I have two from Urban Decay. I have the one from the Naked Smoky palette and the one from the Naked Heat palette, and I love them both. I know a lot of people don't like to use these types of brushes because they're also double-ended and they make it hard to store, but honestly, I don't have a problem with storing them. I just pop them down in the cup, and neither one of the ends are like frayed or messed up or anything. They're perfectly fine. So they both have the same type of blending crease brush type of brush on this end, but then on this end, this one has like a flat shader brush, and this one has like a pencil smudger brush, kind of like the E.l.f. crease brush. But I use these constantly, these two to like blend out crease colors. This one to pack color on the lid is fantastic, and this one to smudge out my lower lash line or to like really be precise with my outer corner. I love doing that. And then the last eye brush I want to talk about for that come in palettes are these three. These are the exact same brush, and I use all of them religiously. These are the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette brushes, and I love these. This fluffy end is like every blending brush dream I've ever had, and then they all have the same flat shading packing type of end, but I love these. They're one of my favorite brushes that I've ever found, and they literally just come in a palette that I'm gonna buy anyways. So those are fantastic. So as you can see, I have a very big preference towards like blending brushes. Brushes like these And these, the just like flat packing concealer type brushes, I don't really have a preference on. I'll use pretty much anything that I have on hand. I think they all pretty much do the exact same thing, so I don't really bother with like finding favorites of these type brushes. And now we'll move on to face brushes. So first of all, I want to show you this. I'm so excited. I just got this from Target like 2 weeks ago or so. It was in their home office section, and I just thought it was perfect to hold brushes. So it's got 4 compartments. They're like kind of staggered. This is like full on heavy metal. So I've got perfume samples over here and then brushes over here. But that was beside the point. But I will link it down below if anyone else wants to check it out. All over face brushes, like powder brushes, are not my favorite way to do powder. I've slowly realized that I prefer using a velour puff to like press the powder into my skin rather than fluffing it all over, because I feel like fluffing it, one, helps like bring up my dry skin and like helps things get cakey and gross, and I feel like it just deposits too much powder. So I don't use them all that often, but when I do, it's this brush. This is the E.l.f. brushes for Ulta Brilliant Powder Brush. I got this in a set for last year's holiday, but they do these sets all the time, and I mean, they have giant powder brushes outside of sets, so you don't need to buy a set. But the E.l.f. brushes are some of the softest things I've ever felt in my entire life. Like, I just sit here and pet this because it's so ridiculously soft. It's like a rabbit's tail. It's amazing. So I love this for all over powder if I'm in those moods. I also love it for like if I get a little too crazy with my bronzer, which definitely happens. It's really good for going in and like blending all that together. And I just think it's ridiculously soft, and I love it. For blush, I only use one brush, and it's the Flower Beauty blush brush. This is fantastic. It's slanted, it's like densely packed, but it's still fluffy and movable, so it's not gonna like deposit too much and then not blend out easily. It's great for blending. It like sits perfectly on your cheekbone, so you can just fluff and you're good to go. Like, you don't need to like sit there and like try and work it, or it's just fantastic. I love this brush. Hands down my favorite blush brush I've ever used. Now, for highlight, I have basically one brush that I use because all the others I've just gotten rid of because I just keep gravitating towards this one. This is the E.l.f. powder brush. It's just a tiny little powder brush, but the shape of this is just perfect for sitting right on your cheekbone and just fluffing that powder right in. It's hands down my favorite. And again, it's E.l.f., so this was like $3. These are just E.l.f. brushes all over are my favorite. So I have the same brush twice for 2 separate things. So this is the E.l.f. highlighting brush, and I actually don't use it to highlight. I find it a little too big for that, but I use this one for bronzer and this one for under eye powder, and they are hands down amazing for both. For bronzer, it's perfect to like sit there in your cheekbone to help you carve out a little bit and then fluff the rest over so that you get a nice blown out bronzer type of look. And for under eye highlighting, I mean, it's basically made for it. It's the perfect shape, the perfect size. You can really just like sit there and fluff. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. So love these brushes. They're fantastic for pretty much everything you need them for. And my final brush that I want to talk about is yet another Wet n Wild brush. This is their small stippling brush, and I love this for cream contouring. This is literally all I use for cream contouring. It's just this adorable tiny little brush, but it's the perfect shape to sit right in the cheekbone and just carve it out. It just helps you be really super precise with how you're blending and all that. And again, this is Wet n Wild, so this was like $1.99 or like $2.50 or something. Like, they're stupidly cheap. They're amazing. They're so freaking soft. I love Wet n Wild brushes. They're amazing. So those were all of my favorite brushes. Most of them are drugstore just because, like I said, I'm cheap, but things like this, 100% worth it. So I hope you guys like this video. I'll have everything that I can find linked down below, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Bye!